In 1889, Hamilton Carhartt started cutting workwear in Detroit. By both World Wars, his factories were sewing uniforms for American troops. That name still sells millions of jackets wrapped in that same identity. But flip one of those jackets inside out today, and the collar tag tells a different story. Carhartt's largest sewing operation now sits in Penjamo, Mexico. So who is still actually cutting and sewing workwear in America? Hamilton Carhartt opened his first workshop in Detroit in 1889, outfitting railroad crews with bib overalls tough enough for the grit and grind of the rails. The operation began with just 2 sewing machines, a handful of workers, and a promise: honest value for the American laborer. By the turn of the century, Carhartt's own factory stood on Michigan Avenue, and the company was running its own cotton mills in the Carolinas and Georgia to keep the supply of denim and duck fabric close to home. During World War I, Carhartt's plant shifted from civilian gear to military uniforms. The company landed contracts to supply the United States Army, turning out coveralls and work suits for troops heading overseas. That wartime production was not a one-off. When World War II broke out, Carhartt again retooled its lines to sew jungle suits, jackets, and other essentials for American soldiers. The brand's reputation for making gear that could take a beating was forged in those years, when the country depended on reliable hands and honest materials. Through the middle of the 20th century, Carhartt operated factories across the country, in Detroit, Atlanta, Dallas, and San Francisco, each one a piece of the larger American industrial engine. The company's name became shorthand for the kind of hard work that built railroads, highways, and city skylines. For generations, the Carhartt label meant the garment in your hands was cut and sewn by American workers, stitched together in the same spirit that sent uniforms to the front lines and kept the country moving through war and peace. In September 1998, Carhartt opened the gates to a sprawling 300,000-square-foot factory in Penjamo, Mexico. The facility came online with about 500 union workers on the floor, each one trained to keep pace with the brand's growing catalog of jackets, pants, and coveralls. This was not an add-on or a side project. It was the largest single plant Carhartt had ever built outside the United States. From the start, the Penjamo factory was designed for volume, with rows of industrial sewing machines, automated cutting tables, and a shipping dock that fed directly into the North American highway system. The decision to set up shop in Mexico was driven by the need to lower costs and speed up production for a global market. Wages in Penjamo averaged $3 to $5 an hour, a fraction of what American union laborers earned in Detroit or Kentucky. The plant's footprint dwarfed many of the company's older U.S. mills, and its output quickly surpassed them. Within a few years, Carhartt expanded further into Mexico, setting up additional hubs to handle everything from insulated jackets to high-volume work shirts. By the early 2000s, the Penjamo plant had become the backbone of Carhartt's offshore operation, with new lines of hoodies and canvas duck pieces rolling out at a pace that American factories simply could not match. No individual executive put their name to the decision in public records, and internal debates about the move remain off the record. But the numbers tell the story. After 1998, a growing share of Carhartt's core products, once cut and sewn in American cities, now started their life south of the border. The Penjamo opening stands as the point where Carhartt's legacy and its manufacturing address began to part ways. On a quiet street in Bristol, Tennessee, the L.C. King factory has been turning out Pointer brand workwear since 1913. 4 generations of the King family have kept the operation running in the same brick building, with founder Landon Clayton King's great-grandson, Jack King, now at the helm. Inside, the hum of machines is more than background noise. It is a living record of American manufacturing. One piece of equipment stands out, a 1918 Walker cutting machine. Still in use after more than a century. Patterns are laid by hand, denim, and duck canvas, stacked and sliced on the same table that's seen everything from the Great Depression to the smartphone era. Pointer brand's approach to durability goes beyond heavy stitching. Every garment comes with a lifetime repair guarantee. The company's repair logs tell the story. Tickets reach back over 20 years, with jackets and overalls sent in for patching, new hardware, or a fresh zipper. Each piece is restored and returned, ready for another round of work. Jack King puts it plainly: "We build them to last, and we stand behind that promise." In a market where most brands expect you to toss and replace, Pointer brand keeps fixing what others would throw away. The proof sits on the shop floor and in the repair records, stitched into the fabric of every item that leaves Bristol. Roundhouse has kept its operation anchored in Shawnee, Oklahoma since 1903, running the same factory floor through 2 world wars and every economic cycle since. The factory logs show a steady pace. About 7,000 pairs of overalls leave the line each week, cut and sewn by workers who know every stitch counts. The denim is shipped in from Littlefield, Texas, where American cotton growers' mills spin and weave cotton grown on U.S. soil. Every invoice and shipping manifest traces a straight line from the Texas mill to the Oklahoma cutting tables, leaving no question about where the fabric comes from or who does the work. On the floor, the supervisor points out the original sewing machines still humming alongside modern equipment, a sign that the shop values both its history and its output. Roundhouse does not just rely on tradition. Its frequently asked questions page states it plain. Carhartt, Dickies, Liberty, Key, Big Smith, and Byrne have 0 American-made overalls. Customs data from the past year back this up. None of those brands reported a single pair of U.S. origin overalls. For Roundhouse, the proof is in the paperwork and in the product, not just the marketing. Every pair of overalls that leaves Shawnee carries the story of American raw materials, American labor, and a supply chain that never crosses the border. Ben and Whitney Waxman launched American Roots in 2013 with a simple promise: every stitch, every thread, every inch of fabric would be American. Their Westbrook, Maine shop employs about 75 workers, all members of USW Local 366, and every paycheck is tied to union standards. The Waxmans didn't just bet on domestic pride. They built their business around it, sourcing US-grown cotton and American-made hardware for every order. In 2024, that commitment paid off when American Roots secured a Defense Logistics Agency contract, award number D2024 AR001. The Berry Amendment required that every fiber and seam be US-made, a bar most brands can't clear. But for American Roots, it was business as usual. The union shop floor, the sourcing paperwork, the payroll records, they all lined up for federal inspectors. The story looks different at Carhartt. The company still runs 3 U.S. plants, 2 in Irvine, Kentucky, and 1 in Camden, Tennessee, where the Bezor 1 duck double front dungaree and duck active jacket are cut and sewn. About 970 members of the United Food and Commercial Workers clock in at these sites, protected by a contract that keeps a foothold for American jobs. The Irvine plant has been running since 1932, its machines humming through generations of change. But the domestic line is a narrow slice of Carhartt's business now, kept alive in part by union leverage and the need to qualify for certain government contracts. For most of Carhartt's catalog, the collar tag tells a different story, one that starts and ends far from Kentucky or Tennessee. 3 formal emails went out to Carhartt's public relations office in June 2024, each one asking for a simple accounting. How much of the company's clothing is actually made overseas, and why isn't the country of origin listed on most product pages? The reply arrived as a single line: "We cannot comment on proprietary supply chain data. No further answers followed, not by phone or in writing. To close the gap, the reporting team ran a full audit of Carhartt's website between 2022 and 2024. Screenshots captured during this process show that unless a garment is made in the United States, there's no mention of its real origin, just a missing label, forcing shoppers to guess. The evidence sits in the email log and the archived web pages, making the transparency gap impossible to ignore. Federal law draws a hard line when it comes to military workwear. The Berry Amendment, written into Title 10 United States Code Section 4862, says every fiber, button, and stitch must be grown or made in the United States for a garment to qualify. No shortcuts. If any part is foreign, the whole order gets tossed out. For everyday buyers, the rule is just as clear. The only way to know if a jacket or pair of pants is truly American-made is to check the collar tag. The FTC requires the exact phrase "Made in USA" to be woven or printed inside the neck. If the tag is missing those words, it was not made here. For government buyers, the checklist is even stricter. Always request a signed affidavit from the supplier before cutting a check. The law and the tag work together. One for the contracts, one for the consumer. Today, most Carhartt jackets are sewn in Mexico, while just 4 workwear brands still cut and sew every stitch in the US. The collar tag doesn't lie, no matter what the website says. In the end, the truth of American workwear is stitched where you least expect it.